Let's do this one more time. Silksong is an amazing game packed with cut content throughout. But what is equally amazing is just how much of that content we cannot stop discovering. I swear, this game is like an endless abyss of cut features, areas, and characters. And even though we discussed almost everything so far and achieved some absolutely insane things, like figuring out the Sea of Sorrow DLC, Min Ferna literally stitching together entire ACMI maps, and the wiki being on a streak with some of the best pages I have seen in my life, there are still some strange discoveries worth talking about. And no, that Hornet and Lace scene is not among them. In my last video, I talked about the Hunter's Nest, which was the old version of the March that was much larger and filled out with plenty of content cut from the game today. But what puzzled me is just where these shots from the reveal trailer actually came from, as the Hunter's Nest had no rooms that fit the description. It turns out that the March is actually one of, if not the most reworked area in Silksong, as its first version, conceptualized as the Bone Hunter Nest, featured dirt everywhere with little to no signs of grass, and looked exactly like a fire ant mound. The entrance to the area was at the Marrow, with the Scar Guard defending it. By going straight from here, we would pass under the Bone Bridge before falling into the enemy gauntlet shown off in the trailer. This gauntlet also looked like it featured the Scar Guard. This would have definitely made players mad. Upon completing it, we could open up a shortcut back to the starting area and likely continue left to obtain something. It is unknown how we would make our way onto the Bone Bridge, but it's more likely that this area was just not finished enough for us to know. Either way, we would be attacked by another Scar Guard here. I swear to God, there are almost as many Scar Guards as there are spires. By advancing further, we will reach Hunter Queen Carmelita's opera. Although you may be thinking, why is it unfinished? Doesn't this map come from the same time as the reveal trailer? Well, yes it does, but the opera and many other rooms shown off just do not exist on the map. I really doubt Team Cherry was able to scramble together this opera room in like under 2 days. That would be insane, but hey, we are talking about Team Cherry here. I think it's far more likely that this was the original intended location for the opera, but they just decided to not place it on the map because it was the only room they had finished and it would look weird with the rest of the unfinished area. A hint for how this unfinished section may have looked can be seen in the trailer shot, with this massive bone structure peeking from the blur. So yeah, we were likely going to see some gigantic ant fortress that served as their home base. Add another L to the pile for Hunter's March. Finally, the eastern side of the area featured a place called the Ant Hatchery. No way we would be able to kill babies in Silksong. This is the best game of all time. The Farfields extension seemed to be planned from the start, but it is unknown why that was. And lastly, Krieg's basement extension was made around this time as well. Funnily enough, that was the only thing which made its way into the Hunter's Nest, before being ultimately cut when the March was made. Oh, and quickly, it looks like the Beastmaster's den would have been locked until we did something to open it according to this save data flag. Also, another flag tells us that the ants were originally supposed to invade the Marrow, probably the same way they invade the basement. Man, why was this cut? To be honest, all of these reworks surrounding the ants kind of pissed me off. Seeing all of this and just how much cooler they could have been makes me wish that it was still in the game. It is probably my only real complaint after so long, and I really want to see the reason why this area was reworked so much in an interview. The current version of the March is extremely disappointing, being incredibly small and not even retaining its dirt mound aesthetic in the Farfields extension, with the Ant Fortress literally being like one room that doesn't make sense geometrically. It's a big shame. What you may have noticed in that footage of the nest is that the area that will later become Farfields used to be quite different than it is today, featuring no grass or wildlife at all. While we do not have its official name, it may have been called Scorchlands, likely serving as an extension to the Marrow. This is one of the changes that I'm glad were made, because seeing more of the Marrow would definitely be sickening by this point. The Song Golem, god, I am consuming so much cut content, I have started using internal names for the characters. What is wrong with me? The Fort Chorus and the Seamstress House, albeit a little bit different, were still there. But the biggest and most confusing fact is that the diving bell used to be located here, out in the open, with likely a slightly different sprite.
Okay, so I'm pretty damn sick, so I'll try to keep this short. This diving bell used to be the way you would go down to the under the lava section on the old 2017 draft map. This is reinforced by the fact that this massive cavern in Deep Docks has a bell docking station and looks exactly like the sketches in that map. The old area for where the bell used to be also uses the same sprites used in the diving bell today and is directly above that cavern geographically. Some people tend to say that this was the abyss that Team Cherry was planning since 2017, but nah, it is not. It is just the old way to get to the bottom of Deep Docks, which at the time wasn't even an actual area because Team Cherry seemed to be only planning for the old dock to appear here, which is the diving bell station. There is also this place called the Void Cult though, and we have no idea what that was, but it might have been related to the abyss somehow. I don't know, man.
Speaking of the Void Cult, its location approximately matches the location of the Wisp Thicket, and while I am very confident that these two have nothing to do with each other, the Wisp Thicket went through what we assumed were some major changes. One of the most puzzling things about it were these strange red pieces everywhere that I just had no idea what they were. It turns out that these are extremely likely pieces of cloth, and the general area didn't actually have many differences at all. According to the room names, every single room that exists today existed back then as well, except two. The Father of the Flame, who I have no idea what happened to, let's be real, he probably went to get milk, and Yarnaby's Bellhome. What looks to be the Bellhome is actually located in Shellwood, right above Greyroot's house. Putting the cure right above the sickness is quite a strange move by the developers, and honestly, if this was Yarnaby, I am glad she got moved. In the lore today, she has been exiled from Bellhart, and it makes sense that she would make her domain somewhere close to the town rather than far away, especially with how dangerous the roads are. We also have to revisit Bellhart itself to talk about Pondcatcher Reed one last time. If you've been following these videos, you know that Reed is Silksong's most mysterious character, featuring an insane amount of cut content surrounding him. This goes even deeper when you realize that Reed has unused Act 3 positions that have him using the same sprites labeled sitting in house. There are even some flags called Met Fisher Home that implies he had a house at one point, and it goes down into the abyss when I realized that this unused Fisher room had to be created sometimes just before the release of the game, as it requires Silksong to be accessed. Even more importantly, it does not show up on any ACMI map, implying it was made after 2024. So why is Reed filled to the brim with cut content surrounding him? I have no idea, but if I had to guess, he's probably way too badass to give a shit about the game. That's why he just flies away. You may remember that I've also talked about some unused Widow sprites in the past. It looks like there were more. Widow would have some sort of pulley. I do not know what is going on here, but I think Reed has some explaining to do. Considering that Widow did not drop the Needolin in the past, it has been widely speculated that the only reward for defeating her was ringing the Bellhart Song Shrine. But this may not have been the case either. The Shaman Crest is called Spinner in the game files, which is the same internal name for Widow, and we know that there was a cut Weaver Crest sometime in development. Considering that we have to press the bind button 3 times on Widow to obtain the Needolin, and how we have to do the exact same on Crest corpses, the Weaver Crest may have been dropped by Widow, and later reworked into the Shaman Crest. So the mystery solved, right? Absolutely fucking not. You have to click the bind button 3 times on someone like the First Sinner as well. And recently, there was a new mechanic discovered that completely breaks this theory apart. The Crest Shrines. Over 4 months ago, it was revealed that Crest used to have a special memory cutscene upon the corpse gets binded. Although this mechanic was never properly implemented and no cutscene actually exists. The Shaman Crest is the closest in this regard, thanks to this strange cut out of bounds room that would have been used for the memory sequence. In the game files, there are many extremely compressed sprites labeled Crest Shrine, and when put together, they may have looked something like this. These shrines can be seen all over the old maps, featured in some locations like the Mausoleum, on top of what is now known as Chapel of the Reaper, and there are even sprites of an overgrown one likely meant to be used in the Beastmaster's Den. There was even one in Mount Fae. Wait, Mount Fae? How does this make any sense? There is not a single crest obtained in Mount Fae today, or anywhere near it in fact. And that's the thing, it doesn't make sense. The only crest missing at this point would have been the Weaver Crest. And the fact that this old version of Mount Fae used to have a massive weaveness similar to the one in Moss Grotto may enforce the theory that this crest used to be obtained here. But if that's the case, why is it called Spinner? A name only used exclusively for Widow. And what does it even mean? mean? Why is Vido even referred to as spinner? Like, is Vido a fidget spinner or some shit? This is where all of this starts to give me a headache, and I think going further into it is only going to make that worse. I will let you come up with your own conclusion on this one. Now, some of you may be wondering where the Needolin was during this time, since Vido did not drop it. Well, it was actually in the Weave Nest. This led to a lot of speculation as to where it would be obtained inside of that place, and how the player would even enter the Weave Nest, as it was locked behind two very angry Weaver doors. According to another save file flag, Weave 5, which is the Mausoleum room, used to have a one-way entrance somewhere, and my bet is on this thing that looks like a floor that breaks when you step on it, landing you right into the Weave Nest. While we are not sure of the overall progression here, somewhere along the line you would enter this massive room which looks to have a Weaver altar. If you pay attention to the map here, you can see the altar is positioned on top of a Weaver burial spire. Way back in the day, it was found that obtaining the Needolin would set your spawn point to V4, which is currently the first hallway of Atla, and it caused a lot of confusion as to why this was the case. But guess what the number of the spire room is? Yeah, 4. This is also reinforced by the fact that obtaining the Needolin shares the exact same SFM as all of the other Weaver Spire power-ups. So there it is, the Needolin would be obtained at this Weaver Spire. But wait, why is it an altar? Well, that is where some speculation comes into play, as with the help of some unused sprites, we can come to some sort of conclusion. It looks like the Weaver resident of this spire actually fell out of it, with the player likely binding it like it's a Crest corpse. The only piece of evidence for this is the fact that the Weaver corpse seems to have 3 versions, indicating a pickup glow effect. Very interesting. All of this really puts the question of these massive strange Weaver harps in the background, which are actually claws. But I think it's great that we finally have some sort of conclusion for this mechanic. Now, let's talk about possibly the most important piece of cut content there is. Strung to Serve, a cut-based Silksong ending that featured GMS absorbing Hornet and haunting the pilgrims on the path to the Citadel. I have talked about this ending plenty of times at this point, so I will provide a quick summary to get up to speed at where we're at. If the player has rung every single song shrine, they would be able to activate tuning forks at the bell hub, making massive bell sounds attack and stun GMS during her battle, activating some sort of second phase with different music before obtaining the Weaver Queen ending. The song shrines necessary for this ending were the 5 needed to get to the Citadel today, the 1 in the first shrine, 1 in the Coral Gorge, which was likely inside of the Coral Tower before being moved to Sands of Karak, and 1 in Bilehaven, probably meant to be located in the Shadow area before being scrapped. This has brought a lot of speculation as to just how the progression worked, and even caused me to make an entire video about that one concept. It was literally free views, okay? The concept about the axe not existing and the game being more like its prequel, just a structured and organized progression with no segments. The Abyss not existing, and by that extension, GMS being the true final boss. This becomes even more likely when you realize that the Caretaker has unused dialogue in the cradle after all of the shrines were rung, implying that there is no snare setter, and with Grohl the Great rewarding a song shrine, there was no reason for him to give you the Seeker's Soul. Hell, there are even sketches here implying that Team Cherry may have once in the past been planning to allow you to completely skip Grohl and head to the ducts, coming back later when you're much stronger to ring the Bell Shrine. Not gonna lie, wish this was still in the game. But that is when we discovered this sprite. The sprite that completely shattered every notion of this case being solved. If we line up this sprite with the mock-up of the Bell Hub screen, we can notice that the silk lines are all pointing to their respective song shrine, acting as a sort of guide for the player to what song shrines are rung, and which needed to be rung. But here is the thing, we see 9 lines here, with that last one going all the way down below any known song shrine location, and there is only one place it could point to, the Abyss. Okay, so there was supposed to be this massive dramatic section here where I talk about how likely and unlikely it would be that the Abyss held a song shrine, and how we cannot let this opportunity pass as we must get the picture before ACMI closes. But just recently some guy took a capture of it, and yeah, there is no bell shrine here, it's just a power cell. Now, the far side room is missing, and that thread does indeed go down directly into the Abyss, so it may just have been been planned yet unfinished to have something regarding Strung to Serve done in here. We will unfortunately probably never know. Also, this guy literally like swooped in, grabbed every single picture we requested and finished the ACMI mission. I was going to promote a document here, but there is unironically like nothing to promote. It's over. Like, we did it. However, if you're a data miner or just pretty good at looking through the game files or connecting information, consider joining the Wiki Discord. More people are always welcome in helping discover information. The fact that we even finished this mission is kind of insane to me and pretty wild to think about. There have been like over 15 people who went to ACMI and submitted emails. It truly was one of the coolest community projects possible, and the only reason it was possible is just because of how amazing this community is. That's enough glazing this part of Silksong. I'm just gonna go back to my inferior past self one last time and finish up this video. There aren't many more things left, but the Moss Temple is definitely one of them. This was a cut extension of Mosshome that used to connect to that one Marrow extension on the eastern side. While we never really knew much about this area, we know that it contained some lore and it was the home of the Moss Druid. This is something that always bothered me, as the Moss Druid room cannot be seen on the ACMI maps despite being made in 2019, and even mentioned in the Edge magazine. This is because it might have been a subworld instead, and while we can't pinpoint where exactly it would be accessed from, this river crevice kind of fits that description. This big room with many platforms today houses a lot of enemies, but back in the day it would actually feature a second, or should I say first, Craggler fight. Yeah, you heard me right. Another one of those dogshit enemies would be fought here. I guess it makes a lot of sense why these platforms are placed the way they are. They were meant to be used by the player as cover from the acid. Speaking of acid, these acidic eggs labeled as the collector eggs in the game files were eggs led by the Acnid enemies, and they seemingly hatched according to this flag. If you remember from my very first video, damn that was a long time ago, I mentioned an enemy called the Grove Pilgrimfly, which would spawn enemies called Aspid hatchlings. And yeah, I think the connection is pretty clear here. This was another way for these to spawn, and it might be implied that they're baby Acnids. That's really all we know about the Moss Temple. It kind of sucks that we will likely never learn more due to the shortage of material, but hey, ACMI is still there. Finally, let us talk about those save file flags I keep teasing throughout all of this. If you didn't know, which I assume you didn't, this is like the most nerdy shit possible, Silksong has to save certain flags that happen in your save file inside of some sort of folder. This is the .dat file you may know if you mess with save files in the past. These flags are usually whether or not the player has killed this boss, opened this door, and stuff like that. While at first glance there isn't anything strange, if you look deeper you can notice many unused flags throughout this file, which give us some new insight into cut content. First of all, it looks like the attunement had an incremental value, similar to how Dream Essence functioned in Hollow Knight. This could imply that there were more ways of obtaining it other than the Weaver fonts. Greymore 17, the room that used to have a second Belvey station, had some sort of battle, and also featured a spool fragment which was probably moved to the other room. There is also this strange flag about Hornet killing a roosting crowman, whoever that was. We know that crows are referred to as crows internally, but none of them roost anywhere. Dust Roach Pens was going to feature two battles of some kind in the starting room and the horizontal room after it. Weird. Now let's pay a trip to the Coral Gorge. Since I'm sure everyone wants to know more about that location, am I right? The room labeled 14 would have had a gate, reinforcing my progression point I talked about in the previous video. It looks like there were two bridge guardians of sorts which probably function like mini bosses or checks for the player. One was probably located here and the other, well, maybe here. It is also unknown why the other had a flag for being stationed. Voltnest also had a guardian of some sorts, a Zap guardian. I think this one kind of hurts because the electricity damage type is a bit underutilized in the game in my opinion. Also, you would likely be able to clear out this portion of the gorge. I'm guessing similarly to what you do when obtaining the Crust Nut. Unrelated to any of these save flags, on some of the oldest maps we can see a sketch that looks like some sort of massive ceiling crab boss. I have no idea what this implies. Upon defeating the Craggler in the Aspid, Clover Stags will return and populate the area. This would also happen in Aspid 7, but it is unknown why that is. Aspid 16 would have a breakable vault that would let us get to some sort of pickup, labeled as a relic. This doesn't doesn't automatically mean it was a relic for Scrounge, due to some other flags. Lastly, these two flags correspond to a room which never existed on the ACMI maps, so there is no info about them. The last flags we will talk about are ones not related to anything we know, yet still being strange, like a cut Wardenfly in Shellwood. This room used to hold it for some reason before it was removed, probably because they decided to add water in the room and didn't bother setting up a drowning animation. Lazy. Visiting Shadow Tree was important for some reason. This flag never updates when you go to Shadow Tree, so it may have been intended for the Shadowlands rather than Bilewater. But who knows, man. The Citadel would have some weird fencers or whatever, and there was a battle in the grand stage, Trobio's arena. You know, I kind of think Trobio had something more going on in the past. He is labeled as an NPC in the press kit despite being a boss, and there is no way his character would just end with no tormented version before Act 3. I kind of hate how people keep saying Trobio might be from the Grim Troop because of the fact that he's red, but you know, I can't even blame them. This guy has absolutely nothing going for him. There is barely any lore to analyze. Finally, there was a little event going on with the Flea Caravan that was likely cut before Vogue and Krat were added. Mushka and his gang all have animations where they are scared, and this flag corresponds to that. There's another flag which confirms that pilgrims would likely attack the caravan as well, which is probably where this animation would play in Greymore. This would have been really cool to see. And that's it. That's all of Silksong's cut content. You can click off the video now. Okay, this bit is getting cringe. There is actually another extremely important save file flag, but before that, I need to have a little bit of a chat. I've been making videos for almost 2 years by now, and the effort put into them has more or less increased with each new upload. There was this drought period, or so I like to call it, of probably over a year where my videos could not find a single shred of an audience that would watch them, all up until I made this Silksong video. While I wanted to make one more Silksong retrospective video after this, I thought that would be the end of it. But then another video came, and another one, and another, and now this. That is where this astronomical and even comical difference in views between my Silksong and non-Silksong videos comes into play. This stuff is so hilarious, I didn't even know it was possible on YouTube, but here we are. I've started this channel because I wanted to build some sort of community and make the videos I wanted to make, regardless of what is trending in the bullshit that is the algorithm. Unfortunately, for the most part, that hasn't happened. There is just no community. Nobody's watching these videos that aren't Silksong related, and for a channel with almost 7,000 subscribers, that is bluntly said pathetic. I feel like Silksong has kind of trapped my channel in this sphere where I cannot do videos on anything else if I expect to get some sort of viewership. And that is sad, man. Especially because I've kind of burned through all of the ideas I had for this game, and the literal fact that this wasn't and never was meant to be a Silksong channel. I had so much fun making those Silksong videos, making sure I am double checking all of my facts, making discoveries with some of the coolest people in the entire community, and delivering all of that information in the form of those videos. And now I get punished for having fun? I've noticed recently that there has been a lot of misinformation spread or straight up reading word for word articles on the Silksong wiki, without giving any credit to the source regarding cut content, or Silksong content in general in the form of YouTube shorts. I am not going to name anyone in this video. The last thing I want is to bring drama to this tiny channel I have, and that is not why I make these videos. Times have changed. YouTube isn't a platform where you can grow slowly and gather a community anymore. It is very niche driven, and if you do not stick to one topic, you're already at a massive disadvantage compared to anyone else who does it. Unless you are, of course, already a big creator with a secure community. It is this playing field filled to the brim with one-hit wonders. One video blows up, other 10 flop harder than a fish, especially in the field of YouTube shorts, which YouTube seems to prioritize way more than actual videos nowadays. And I can literally show you what I mean. I think to this day, I've only seen a couple of Silksong videos break the 1 million view mark. And trust me, these videos are incredible, and they all deserve these if not higher numbers. But what I've also seen is just how many sloppy and uninteresting shorts have broken that same mark. Some going even beyond to millions of views, made purely just to get those views and money. And you know what I've realized? I'm missing out. Obviously I am joking, but do you understand how many free views I have let go, my channel is already kind of fucked. But as a wise man once told me, when your channel is fucked, fuck it up even more, baby. Expect to see daily Silksong cut content shorts on this channel from now on, covering every single topic you already know about from these videos. All completely fact-checked, all sourced, no misinformation spreading today. I actually can't believe that's like the bare minimum. You know, there's this short of this person talking about something, and they literally showed the wiki in the short, yet don't read it. So their whole take is just speculation, despite the information literally being on the page you showed. I am not going to say who it is, but come on, how can you mess up this badly? And yeah, me saying this isn't really a joke. It has come to a point where I really am forced to engage with this system, and I hope that I can at least offer some better quality where it truly matters. I never really liked short form content in general, but I realized that this is what the majority of people engage with nowadays, and that sucks honestly. I have made some shorts in the past, with their quality being pretty questionable at best. I did not enjoy making these, and they were really poorly made. These ones should be better, I think. Longer videos are not going anywhere, and I will keep posting videos on different topics as well. The next Silksong video may take a while in fact, and Half-Life will be out first. Thank you all for sticking with me if you're here. I have no idea how many people this video will reach, and I know the majority of you are only here to see me talk about Silksong. And that's fine, we all have our lives and interests. I am still shocked that people actually pay me money monthly to watch these stupid videos. But if you do, I sincerely thank you. It feels kind of bad leaving this video off on such a depressing note, and I kind of didn't know how to end it when I was writing the previous part of the script a few days ago. But I think the most important thing that Silksong has taught me is to just try to be better, to improve and adapt in the hardest circumstances. It is absolutely insane what this community has been able to achieve in such little time. The ACMI mission, piecing together the progression, figuring out Farloom Bay, and all of the fun moments made on the way. I met some of the coolest people from this series and the game in general, and had ungodly amounts of fun working on these videos. I wish you too the exact same thing. If you want to talk about something you care about or even make videos about it, fucking do it, man. If you are interested in this game or any other game, hell, even if it's completely unrelated to video games and you just want to express some feelings, go for it. I can promise you that it will be fun, no matter how many views you may get, because you would be touching something that is real. Wow, that sounds corny. Anyways, that last flag I was talking about was has kissed lace. Wait, what the hell? No, that's misinformation. Have a good night.